Again, all you can do is just concentrate on the job at hand, and that is what drivers do very, very well. And of course, it doesn't matter what the situation is with the track, you try as hard as you can, and with the track being as greasy as it is at the present time, it's just being a bit smart, being a bit clever, and just keeping yourself on the track itself. Any slight push will throw you straight off the track. But like you said, Simon, yeah, it might feel slow, but at the end of the day, you've done a full lap on the track itself.
Up to Ted on the roof.
Thank you, Simon. Yes, didn't look too bad as the safety car came round, just giving it a go. Actually, the last corner seemed to be the worst part of it, and that's where we saw a large number of cars actually spinning. Danny Kvyat was one of the spinners in the AlphaTauri just before the red flag was called, and clearly not being able to control the car. For all the talk of Mercedes struggling, wasn't so bad, was it? Fourth for Lewis Hamilton, second for Valtteri Bottas. So they didn't look too unhappy down there. Ferrari, they're going to get a new visor ready for Charles Leclerc. He was, his teammate Sebastian Vettel was 13th, whereas Leclerc was even further down in 16th. So Ferrari struggling so far. Kevin Magnussen was another one who was having visor problems on his crash helmet. The inside of the visor was fogging up. So they had put this stuff called Rain-X on the outside of the visor, but he was saying, no, I don't have it's not a heated element on the inside, although you can get some on some of these crash helmets. We need to actually put some of this Rain-X or defogging stuff onto the inside of the visor as well. Red Bull, you can see their pit wall sort of lit up like that, so they've got lots of information. They can see what we can see on the radar, that the rain has stopped, hasn't rained for quite some time now. And looking down to Renault, they're very happy. Esteban Ocon, currently fastest of all, but that's looking pretty good. So yeah, it's well, it's dry up here, so what can we say? Ready to go.
Ready to go, but if you are Charles Leclerc, Karun, and you're in the bottom five, let's have a look at Bernd Maylander in the safety car as he ploughs round, doing that exploration lap. If you're Charles Leclerc, tactically, how do you play these last 6.5 minutes of Q1?
The balancing act is how early do you go, because you want to go early and get to the head of the queue so you don't have visibility issues and don't have traffic issues. But if you go too early, your tire temperatures are plummeting. So to me, I think you're almost better off letting the first gaggle of cars go, because it's so cold. Track temp is 14 degrees. I think let the first gaggle of cars go out with hot tires, and you might still get the 3 laps.
Yeah, I'd go the other way around. I'd get out there early, the guys then behind, and then going to come onto the track, start to sort of throw all that spray and get that water off the track itself. Hopefully you don't catch anybody up, obviously, when you start your lap, but I think that's where the team then are going to have to gauge where the last man will be.
At best, you're going to get 3 laps.
Yeah, best.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And also, you're talking tactically about what Mercedes were doing, coming in, making sure that they got hot tyres in as the rain came down, and the ones in the blankets just keep getting hot tyres on.
Yeah, I mean, that's critical, absolutely critical. The tyres don't work if they're cold, and they come out of the blankets at 80 odd degrees in the wet, so and when they get on track, they're just plummeting. Temperature's just plummeting. 15-degree track temp. So, I mean, it won't be a problem. Now they'll all just have hot tyres and they can go straight out.
Was that a nod that says yes? I wonder. Okay, helicopter is overhead. Safety car is back in. No word yet from race control. Stand by. Here's David and Martin.
We'll get a 5-minute warning, I'm sure, from Bernd Maylander in race control. And the trouble that Charles Leclerc's got is that Johnny's right. You want to get out there as early as possible, get to the head of the queue. You might have to be sat there waiting for a few minutes at the end of the pit lane to get to the head of that queue, and then your tyres have got way too cold.
Yeah, that's a big problem. I mean, the engines will tick over for quite a long time. They drop their cylinders down and they'll chug along waiting. But, as you say, tyre temperatures and therefore pressures falling away. I feel we could get the process back underway now. If we think it's not going to rain again, that looks like it will manage full wet now, and we could get the whatever warning we're going to get, because we're right up against it on light here. There's no doubt about it. If we're going to keep losing chunks of time to get this qualifying session done on an overcast day. Sunset is 5:45 p.m. It's 3:30 already. We're only a dozen minutes into, well, less than that, into qualifying. So
we've had a car slide off into the gravel, and a red flag for that, yes, as well.
Yeah. So we need to press on. But I thought the track looked looked okay as it stopped raining.
And by the way, if we couldn't complete qualifying and this was the grid, just suppose for a bit of fun, Esteban Ocon would be the first French driver to start on pole since Jean Alesi in 1997. The first Renault pole since Fernando Alonso in 2009. Alonso goes back testing again next week, doesn't he? With Frankie Joe and his return to Renault for the 2021 season, which, as it stands at the moment, has a 23 race calendar. Would be the most amount of races we've ever had.
You're not allowed to change the amount of grip on the racetrack itself, but it seems like you're allowed to do that in the pit lane. I did see Williams leaving the pits really early doors, right at the beginning of qualifying, literally almost unable to get away because the concrete in the pit lane is extra shiny.
Yeah.
And that's where they're desperately trying to find their drivers a little bit of purchase as they come out of the garage.
Right, to the roof once again, Ted Kravitz.
We've got a track sweeper. We've got a track sweeper out on the track now.
And that's making how much difference?
It doesn't have a Merton Borough Council logo on the back side of it. It says Intercity, which, by the way, this is you might have seen it's called the Intercity Istanbul Park.
Yes.
Now, Intercity is it's like a car leasing firm, we believe. So it's like a sponsorship deal, like the Emirates Stadium.
Wasn't this track, very sadly, for a while, a massive big car park?
Yes, I believe it was a sort of depository for all of these leased cars.
Yes.
For the fourth biggest leasing firm in Turkey, the aforementioned City, to store a load of their Mondeos or whatever the lease car of choice is in Istanbul. A sad, really, end to the racing, and that's why there wasn't any racing here. That's why they didn't think it was worth it to upgrade the track surface when they had a chance. In those 9 years since we've been here, and why they thought they had to do when Formula One came calling once again, which is why we're in this mess in the first place. Well, a mess. We can't control the weather, can't we? So we shouldn't call it that. But someone who can control what tyres he goes out on, has done a brilliant job, is Sergio Perez. None of these full wet tyres for him. He did his quickest lap, which I believe is P6. Crofty, correct me if I'm wrong. P5. I was wrong. Even better on the intermediate tyre. I did double check this, and he did. That was the only tyre he ran in the beginning of that session.
Yeah.
So credit, respect to Checo. Great car control on the intermediate. He's the only one who could do it. Everyone else was on full wets. Amazing.
It was those that got out early and made an intermediate lap work, and that they didn't make a mistake too much, or they didn't have to abandon. It was the early laps that really set this order so far.
17 race point scoring streak at the moment for Sergio Perez, longest in his career, and the only man other than Lewis Hamilton to score in every single race he's competed in for this season. These two, of course, positive COVID test at Silverstone. So we're still waiting for news from race control. We still have the red flag. We've got track sweepers out on the track, just trying to get some of the puddles away. But even when we do get out there, and I'm confident that we will, it's still going to be massively slippery. That is the right phrase.
Yeah, I mean, back in Australia 2013, unless you've already said this, Crofty, we did finish Q2 and Q3 on the Sunday morning in Melbourne for the Grand Prix. So there is a precedent for this. Of course, we have no idea what the weather will be like tomorrow morning anyway, but
at least we have no support races that will need to be cancelled or rejigged around. So there's time in the track schedule because there's nothing else going on the track other than Formula One.
Yeah.
So that would help. The track sweeping is taking place in turns 7 and 12, which makes me think that it could be a while before they get there. To be honest, they are not the fastest moving track sweepers on the planet, and the last time we saw one it was going through turn 1, so I'm hoping they've not kind of come out from the final corner and they've got to make their way to turns 7 and 12.
It was the only thing we've seen make the apex in turn 1 so far in qualifying, though, wasn't it? To be frank. And they did look touch quicker through turn 2, I thought, than the F1 cars.
I say they're very slow. One of them did overtake me when I was doing my track run on Thursday evening, although we were going uphill at the same time. Quick question for you. You were talking about the calendar, Martin, the 23 race calendar for next year, and you rightly said, we're a world championship, we go around the world, and quite a few of our viewers were saying, well, if we do that, isn't it about time we went back to Kyalami, for instance, and had a race in Africa? Is there any chance we could ever go back to Kyalami, do you think? Because we often get people saying, we want to see racing back at Kyalami, come on, Formula One.
Yeah, I mean, we used to have wonderful races down there. We even used to go testing down there. I remember with the Brabham team going down there and testing, and a big following, of course. We've got a big following on our show, haven't we, of South Africans who love their F1. But there are, I mean, Miami is put on the back burner at the moment, but there are so many venues at the moment quite keen, thank goodness, to have a Formula One race. And I guess, to an extent, we follow the money, don't we? I think in F1, always did and probably always will. But there's also, we visit all the continents, and we
except sadly Africa at the moment.
Absolutely. And so it would be great to go back down there.
It's a balancing act between finding the right tracks to give us great racing, and also providing the money and bringing in the money that you need for Formula One. And
as we've learned back at Imola and all that, you don't need a palace anymore with garages that you can have a football match in, like Formula One sort of evolved into. We can, I think we can change our goals and our criteria a little bit after this year.
I think from the commentary box, we'd love to go back to Kyalami one day. The noise that I'm hearing at the moment is that TBC race with Vietnam dropping off the calendar. Malaysia has emerged as a very strong contender, and I don't think anyone would be unhappy to go back to Malaysia. There was some great racing at Sepang over the years, but there's also a bit of a bidding war as well, because there are tracks like Turkey, like Imola, like Mugello, that would love Formula One to come back again. So if they can find the money, there's a chance we could.
Malaysia was a great track, and of course we had a wonderful track in India as well, but it was good to go down there, but there were all sorts, I think, of import issues for the cars and what have you. It's why we haven't been back there. But yeah, it's a lot of wonderful facilities around the world.
This is the calendar for next year, starting in Australia on the 21st of March, back-to-back racing with Bahrain, and then China, and then that TBC race that was going to be Vietnam, and now could be Malaysia, but watch this space on that one, because I think there are other tracks that are very keen to host Formula One as well. Monaco is scheduled for the 23rd of May, and you'll notice after the summer break, so Hungary is the final race of the first part of the season, and there's the traditional summer break. After that, Belgium, Zandvoort and Monza is a triple header, followed by a week off, and then Russia, Singapore and Japan being a triple header. Now that's a brutal schedule for the teams there to get all that in. And even though they'll be coming back and forth after Hungary and after Belgium and after the Netherlands, they'll be staying out a long period away from their families as well. That is a really brutal schedule.
Teams do have, say, a team manager or a team principal that goes to every race. You go to every race, properly. But I think they're going to have to start flip-flopping engineers and mechanics. I know they are. There's nobody can really carry out a 23 race that's going to grow to 25 races could grow to 25 races.
It's possible. 23 races for next year. And Andreas Seidel's with us at McLaren on the pit wall. A question for you, Andreas. As team boss, I would imagine you'll be at all the races, but do all of your staff have to do every single race, or could you have one crew, an A crew and a B crew, to manage it, the more races that we get in the calendar?
See you soon. I think it's, let's say, we have a split within the team. There's obviously some functions in the team, people that are involved, let's say, on the performance side, on the reliability side,
Off with you.
on the pit stops, car build and so on, where we simply cannot afford a rotation. Because you need, let's say, I see that like being an elite sports team, you need the best players on the field, and you simply learn race by race. You learn from mistakes, you learn from things that go well, and it's important to keep that forward, let's say, putting that forward, or this experience, and use it for the entire season. And the challenge simply that we have now for next year with these 23 races is we look into, together with our guys, so we do this in a very inclusive process. How can we help them when we do these 23 races out here at the track to make their life easier? How can we help them also when we are back home in the factory or when they are back home with their families, in order to make sure it's sustainable also.
Do you think that 23 is a limit, or do you think you could do 25? Would that be a limit? How do you see it going in the future from a team's perspective?
Well, I think we have mentioned several times we clearly would prefer that we might go down even to a race calendar of 20 races, but in the end we fully trust F1 here to make the right decisions. I think in the Concord agreement there's a limit of 25 races. And again, in the end, it's a challenge that we have to face. We all want to be part of Formula One. We want to be part of the championship. And in the end, Formula One defines the calendar, and then it's our challenge how to deal with it. But again, I think we have a lot of committed guys within our team. It's important now to go into the dialogue with them how we tackle this challenge together as a team. And then I'm sure we can manage next year.
And what of a 2-day race weekend? Is there an appetite for that for the future, or would you prefer it not to happen?
From our side, we would definitely, let's say, be in favor to do at least some race weekends with 2 days, especially when we think about these triple headers, because in the end it could save not just running costs for the teams, it could also save days for the guys, especially for the mechanics and for the engineers that do all the hard work out there here at the track away from home, and that would be clearly a benefit we would see, and that's why we would support going in this direction for at least some races.
And how about today? Any news on when we might get back out on track, Andreas? What are you hearing?
No, we have no news yet. I think you have seen the race director said that he will give us a 5 minutes pre-warning before we start again. I think they still work on removing the standing water on track because of the aquaplaning race. But with the weather now getting better and better again, I think it's not too far away.
When we get that 5-minute warning, is there a temptation to send your cars out nice and early to the end of the pit lane, or do the tyres get too cold to be able to do that for very long?
Yeah, it's a tricky thing to do. Of course, you don't want to be out too early at the end of the pit lane because, as you say, the tyres cool down so quickly, and it's key to have the tyres on temperature when you do this first lap. At the same time, you want to be at the front for the visibility, because this is, for example, where Lando benefited quite a lot when he did his first lap on the Inters before. So, yeah, there will be a race to the pit lane as late as possible, but soon enough.
Excellent. Thanks ever so much, Andreas.
Cheers.
Thanks for your time. So that you can, as Martin mentioned, try and dry your pit box in the pit lane, which is what a lot of the teams are doing at the moment, because what they don't want is a car to come steamrolling into the pits even at 80 kilometers an hour, put the brakes on and go sliding through.
Yeah, it has happened, of course, but yeah, you're not allowed to alter the grip in any way on the start line, understandably, but pit lane, it's fine. Anti-clockwise track, you're on the inside of the track there, obviously. With the pits, it's not always the case. Manicourt, for example, pits used to be on the outside of the track, but it is the second anti-clockwise track of the year, actually.
Yep, second of 3. Abu Dhabi being the final one. There was an engineer yesterday at one of the teams. I said, what did you learn from practice? He said, well, we learned to turn left going out of the garage. That was probably the most beneficial part of the day. This is Esteban Ocon, who's got the fastest time so far. We didn't see the whole of this lap, Martin, so take us through it.
Has he just finished it, or is he starting it? I think
it's difficult to tell.
It's difficult to tell.
I think he's just starting.
He was spinning his wheels all down the pit straight. Whoa, lovely and smooth on the throttle. Suddenly the rear tyres light up. Little blind crest here. Yeah, just very, very calm. Surprised he's taking the curbs, but the car's handling it quite well. It's always the downhill braking zones that are particularly difficult. And you've got all the mass arriving into a downhill section. Yeah, so until he gets into 5th, 6th gear, it keeps lighting up the rear tyres, the rear axles. He's applying the power. Two-wheel drive cars, of course, rear-wheel drive. And, oh, so gently. He's probably got 10% throttle in through most of that corner. And now you've got the quadruple apex turn point. I notice Esteban staying really low pretty much everywhere. This is the scary bit. When do you really give it full torque demand? Obviously in a straight line, that's fine. We're catching the car ahead. Suddenly our visibility goes. Red lights splashing away. That would send me absolutely mad following that for a race. And we've seen a lot of cars really struggling through out of 10. Then you've got a right kink, a really high-speed right kink of 11. So if this was his fastest lap, he did it with quite a lot of traffic, easing off a little bit. And we're going to go up the inside. Now he's going to take it easy. And we got 12, 13 and 14 in quick order. He's really kind of more minding his business than putting in the fastest lap of qualifying so far, isn't he? Just survive. It's a survival lap, basically. Yeah, it's tick over on the apexes. And let's see when he can get rid of the wheel spin in the pit straight. There we go, fourth spinning up, fifth. Often when you just shift gears is when it breaks traction.
And that was his fastest lap.
What's his fastest lap?
But maybe
it was everybody's fastest lap.
Exactly. He's one for the conditions. Fifth on the grid, Esteban Ocon, of course, in that wet weather session that we had at the Styrian Grand Prix. Seems like a long time ago now, Ted Kravitz, when we were in Austria. So long, Ted's fallen asleep. Ted?
It was the start of the season. It was the start of the season, wasn't it, Crofty?
Yes.
It's only that the start of the season was in July. And not March. Right, here comes Bernd Maylander again in the safety car after these track sweepers with their big vacuums and their rotary brushes have done their thing. Although I haven't seen the one that lives on the pit straight come back to the pit straight. But he should be coming back, or she, whoever's driving the road sweeper. But this lone mechanic at Red Bull is doing a sterling job. And it's just doing a sort of one-man job of actually trying to dry out the pit box, which he is managing to do very well. His colleague at Ferrari is doing it with a rather smaller leaf blower over next door. Should actually underline the performances of Lando Norris and Lance Stroll as well. Even though they finished the session on full wets, they did do their quickest times on the intermediate, yes, as well as Sergio Perez who did pretty well. And what else was I going to tell you about? No, that was about it.
You've exhausted all things up there for the time being. But I'm sure.
Tell you about
is
Sebastian Vettel. Oh yes,
well
that's it.
Yeah.
Sebastian Vettel, who was saying on the radio that the conditions were so bad they were worse than aquaplaning, and I just didn't really understand how you get worse than aquaplaning. Maybe Martin can expand on that.
No, I was thinking the same thing. I don't know what's worse than aquaplaning. I've been upside down a couple of times. There's not much grip when you're doing that, when you're in the air, but that's worse than aquaplaning.
Yeah.
So maybe it's somewhere between aquaplaning and being in the air.
Somewhere between the blue stuff on the ground and the blue stuff in the sky, maybe. So Bernd Maylander is going around the track, as you can see, the safety car driver, to make sure that that track sweeping has been done sufficiently to get rid of all the water and to see what the grip levels are like at the moment. While we ride on board with Bernd Maylander, lots of people offering their suggestions as to how we can get going again, including Damon Hill, ladies and gentlemen, who's at home at the moment. Let me have a go, he says, at drying this track. Come on. Well, Damon, if you can get your jetpack to Istanbul, I'm sure we could use it. It's a very useful thing to do.
If he hasn't got a beard, moustache and eyebrows next time we see him, we'll know why.
Is that his new hobby? Is he finally decided golf is not the way forward and I'm actually going to go jetpack riding instead? Oh dear. Surfer, golfer, jetman, world champion, Damon Hill.
Midlife crisis. That'd please him if I say midlife.
He had that 10 years ago. So Bernd Maylander then has finished his lap. Come on.
I don't like it when Bernd comes straight in the pits. I like him to go down the pit straight, suggesting he's...
Oh, no, it's
we're
fine.
Going good,
it's fine.
Good. He's even happier. He doesn't need the pit straight.
He's decided it is so good that we can get going again, ladies and gentlemen. There's the news that you wanted. 15:55 local time. So in 4 minutes and 20 seconds, the session will restart. So he's decided that halfway around the lap. Brilliant. Because we've got 6 minutes and 56 seconds of qualifying to go here and an absolute race to get out of the bottom five. And if you're Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc, it's squeaky backside time. Make no mistake of that. They are separated at the moment, safety and relegation, by 7 thousandths of a second. 7 milliseconds between the Red Bull driver, Red Bull in their 300th Grand Prix this weekend, and yes, Christian Horner has been on the pit wall for every single one of those 300 Grand Prix, and Charles Leclerc, who has been magnificent so far in these conditions this weekend, and I would imagine wouldn't have expected to find himself down in the bottom 5.
Like the advert we used to have in the UK, isn't it, where the guy used to go, yes, the fruit's ready. What was it, Del Monte or something? When Bernd Mailander says, yeah, we're off.
The man from the safety car says yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good.
So Nicholas Latifi right at the bottom, along just behind his teammate George Russell. Latifi's had a spin so far. Gasly's had a spin so far. Grosjean has gone sideways off the track as well. It's all manner of problems in the first part of qualifying, but now, as what have we got? 3 minutes. When do you send your cars out? You want to be at the head of this queue so that you get the best view of the track and you don't get the spray from the other cars. But how long can you last there, letting your tyres cool down when you know, Martin, there's not much chance of getting the temperature back in them again?
Yeah, well, your outlap's going to be 2.25 minutes plus any time you're stuck in the pit lane. It could mean the difference between getting that third lap in or not. So you'll risk the tyre temperature. You need to be well up in the queue.
And because the track would have changed a lot since the cars were last out there. Does everybody come out? Does Esteban Ocon, Valtteri Bottas think we're safe or not?
Yeah, absolutely. No, Bottas did a 2:04 that was deleted.
Yeah.
You know, and we saw Ocon's lap. He was just minding his own business. There's something to be learned from that. But he's fastest, but you can tell that there's a lot more time out there if you can hook a lap up. So they're going to have to get out there. And yeah, Albon, I think it is, at the front of the queue. He's going to have no tyre temperature when he gets going. That's the problem.
And what you're praying for as well, especially if you're trying to get out of the bottom 5, is that no one has a spin in front of you, or we don't get another red flag or double waved yellows that destroys your lap without it being your fault.
But of course, you know, the higher performing teams, the bigger teams, are at the far end of the pit lane as well.
Yeah.
They've got the most distance to travel, and they could get a queue jump down there. Renault looking remarkably relaxed.
It's like it's all part of the plan down there. So we've got a minute and a half just under. Ferrari have sent their 2 cars out. As we keep repeating, Charles Leclerc needing to get out of the bottom 5, but there we have Alex Albon, Kimi Raikkonen, Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, Sebastian Vettel waiting.
The big question is, can they actually go faster than the times that have already been delivered? Probably, I would say. But so yeah, it's track time and track position and visibility versus warm tyres. It might well be last driver over the line who can, you know, as the track just improves and improves and improves. So
45 seconds to go. Ted Kravitz.
They're all on full wets and they're all keeping their engines going. So I do believe every car, apart from the Mercedes-powered ones, can switch their cars off and then start them up again on the energy recovery system, the MGUK, which is like a starter motor that feeds off a little gear system to the actual crankshaft of the engine. But from what I can see and hear down here at the end of the pit lane, just overlooking them, they all kept their motors running and all on full wets.
Yeah. Which would be, I suppose, nice for the drivers, because it'd be a bit cold in that cockpit otherwise.
yeah, well, they can just cut cylinders and it'll tick over nicely.
10 seconds to go then to the green light. Responsibility for Alex Albon right at the head of the field to get away, and to get away nice and fast and not hold up others behind him. Not have any issues on these exploratory laps. Straight out of the garage, tries to come George Russell and tries to cut in there behind the Ferrari and ahead of the Renault. Williams in that last garage before the pit lane exit. Let's have a look then at the conditions of the track. Oh, and already Kimi Raikkonen has gone sideways, manages to get back to the angle he wants by the time he gets towards turn 3. But that shows you how tricky it is already. The most experienced man in the field, within a few hundred meters, going sideways.
That did surprise me, and he's desperately trying to keep the Ferrari behind him at the moment. He's across the grass.
Leclerc, he's gone round the outside as Kimi Raikkonen and has kept the Ferrari behind him. And Leclerc can't afford to be too aggressive in trying to get ahead of Kimi Räikkönen. He's got the most to lose in that battle because he's in the bottom 5 as Kimi goes wide once again.
I tell you what, I bet there's more grip out there on that concrete. If you're not going to get, and not every corner's a track limits corner, there might be more grip out there.
Nicholas Latifi was trying to cut in, by the way, ahead of that Renault. He didn't manage to do it. George Russell's just come out now. And there is Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes making his way out of the pit lane. And yes, there's Latifi. Bit of cheeky queue jumping, but in the end, has to file in behind Esteban Ocon, and this is what happened to Kimi Räikkönen. He's going in a straight line, and then suddenly he's not.
Yeah, I mean, there's a slight right kink there up to T3, and it was enough to dislodge the back. We've seen a few lucky spins, haven't we, today so far? That was another one.
On board now with Max Verstappen. And that was his view of the Alfa Romeo coming back onto the track again. Luckily, he could just about see Kimi Räikkönen on the right-hand side of his car. So let's watch Alex Albon now. He's had one exploratory outlap from the pits, and this is where he starts getting timed. And Albon currently is P8 in terms of his fastest time so far.
I mean, it's just a guess as to where you can hit the brakes into the first corner. You're always going to have to be cautious. Look at the amount of water that thing's lifting into the sky. That's why the track will improve really quickly with all 20 cars on track now. And they'll start clearing the water away. We've seen the graphics, 84 litres per second at 300 kilometres per hour, 190 miles an hour, that is. Not at these kind of speeds.
Someone's gone off in turn 1 already, and I think it's Charles Leclerc who is in the bottom 5. And I think Charles Leclerc has had quite a nasty moment for him down into turn 1. He's still going. He's now behind Esteban Ocon, but I think he's gone off the track and rejoined it again as we continue to watch Alex Albon. So twitchy, isn't it, that car, every time he puts his foot down.
And of course Leclerc's the man most under pressure, isn't he, in 16th as well, for good measure. And a driver that's been really quick, hasn't he, in these conditions, Leclerc, when it was slippery yesterday and this morning.
And that is Romain Grosjean, and he has beached his Haas. That's not going anywhere, and there's another red flag. I was going to say, he's not going anywhere in a hurry. Now, this has got very bad for the bottom 5, which includes Romain Grosjean, but it's the second red flag of the session. The clock stops at 3 minutes and 30 seconds to go.
There's still enough time, though, for an out lap and a hot lap.
I'm stuck.
Twice a winner in GP2 here at Istanbul Park. And in F1 qualifying, this is what's happened to Romain Grosjean. Into turn 1 we go, trying to keep it in a straight line down the straight, trying to stop it in time, spinning and into the gravel. Just nothing Romain Grosjean could do about that at all.
What are we going to do if the race is like this tomorrow?
Well, in these sort of conditions, there's a high chance that that's exactly what we're going to get. This was Charles Leclerc, and I mentioned that he'd had a big off as well. And yeah, like Romain Grosjean, into the gravel, but he's pointing forwards, which has rather saved him. Rather than going reverse into the gravel, he was going the right way in.
He did well to get out of the second phase of this incident. Look, he realised you got to fire the throttle up and keep some momentum, otherwise you're building sandcastles on the beach. There we go. Now he's going to floor it. You've got to put some drive into it and keep it going. He did very well to get out of there. And look at that. He fancies the grass more than the gravel. That was smart. That's how he managed to do it. Now he gives it some beans. Yeah, it lives for another day.
But this man doesn't. Grosjean is out of qualifying. To add insult to injury, would they have deleted Charles Leclerc's lap time if the red flag hadn't come out as well, because he exceeded track limits? The computer possibly would have said no on that one. But yeah, that is Grosjean out of qualifying, and another red flag while the marshals retrieve that stricken Haas car. So all the cars back into the garages eventually. They'll put another set of the wet tyres on. New sets that have been sat in the blankets, you would imagine, for a bit longer. But how long is this delay going to be? Fingers crossed, not that long. But having seen how the cars are performing on that, lap and a half that we got. Is Michael Massey of a view to wanting to restart this, I wonder? Because if you were the race director, what would you do? Having seen so many cars struggle in a very short space of time.
Well, he's going to restart it at 3 minutes past the hour. Right. That's fine. I think the track's not waterlogged. Hasn't got any grip, but it's not waterlogged. And I'm really not sure anybody's going to go faster. No. Looking at those various dramas, we're going to have to. I think we're just going to keep getting this qualifying session done a bite size at a time.
Absolutely. And, I would assume there's absolutely no point throwing a massive gamble if you're Charles Leclerc and Ferrari and thinking, well, we'll stick the Inters on, see if they could go any faster than the wets. If they're all struggling, maybe we could do an intermediate lap, but I would imagine that would be slower as well.
Yeah, but when you see Kimi aquaplaning off on full wets, I don't think the Inters will. But, they'll quite quickly clear that standing water away. But if you're, I don't know, a set of Inters probably means a shunt.
Right, so there's a scramble around the garages. There's 3 sets of wet weather tyres, and when one set's not on the car, the other 2 are keeping warm in the blankets. So they want some nice warm tyres on before they go back out again, which they're doing in 30 seconds. Ted.
Martin, I'd never say you're wrong, but there's one man who hopes you're wrong, and that's Max Verstappen, and he has been absolutely desperate to get to the end of the pit lane and get out and get on with it. Nobody improved, as you rightly said, in that little mini session we had, second go at it, but Verstappen's got to hope that he can just get a clean lap. Nobody goes out on beaches, because he's going to be right on the bubble. In 15th at the moment, he'll probably get away with it, wouldn't you thought, Crofty? Just. Yeah. But, it's going to be nervous stuff on the Red Bull pit wall.
He'll be watching. Well, he won't be, but on the Red Bull pit wall, they'll be watching Charles Leclerc's sector times with a lot of interest here.
I thought Ted was just going to tell me I was wrong on intermediates. I think somebody was out on intermediates.
Well, if anyone was going to do it, you'd probably think Max Verstappen would be the man to try that. But out they come once more then. Although Bottas and Stroll, Perez, Norris, Magnussen still in the garage, but they've not been queuing up at the end of the pit lane purely because they haven't really had the time to do that for this one, and that might, with the tyres a bit warmer, that might help.
My favourites for this race are the Red Bull boys of Verstappen and Albon. Right now, Albon's 8th, Verstappen's 15th. But, nervous times. Of course, once you clear the bar into Q2, it all resets. It doesn't matter anymore. You just got to clear the bar.
Absolutely. So this is Max Verstappen then, who's got to the head of the queue.
Yeah, actually, you know what? It's all right out there, isn't it? As long as it's not a track limits corner, it doesn't matter out there.
I think that was turn 6, and that is now a track limit corner.
Yep.
It wasn't yesterday. It is today. But it'd be okay on his out lap. Just don't do it on the next lap, Max. Will be the instructions coming from the pit wall.
Yeah, but this track is fine. It's not dangerous. No. It's not dangerous. It's very, very difficult, but that's fine.
So Grosjean is out, and for Haas then this year, Magnussen and Grosjean tied at 7 apiece in terms of their qualifying performance. Kevin Magnussen will beat Romain Grosjean because Grosjean can't go any faster because he can't go anywhere.
Max is on it.
You can see. Nice bit of drift coming out of the final few corners. Let's see how Max Verstappen tackles this 3.3 miles around Istanbul Park there.
But you don't want to break traction if you can help it. You're not going forward at that point. Turn 1, we've seen all the dramas, haven't we? So you've got to get into 1, because if you go wide, we saw Leclerc and Grosjean, you're going into the gravel. That looks all right. He's got plenty of throttle on, hasn't he?
This is where Kimi Räikkönen came a cropper on the last out lap, but Magnussen taking it very nicely indeed. Through turn 3 we go, and behind him everyone else out on the track as well.
So Verstappen did the 2 best sectors on his out lap.
Which suggests the improvement is there then, if that was his out lap sectors.
It was carrying a lot of speed. You know, if I'm thinking back to that Ocon lap we saw, Max is carrying a lot of speed.
So we have another yellow flag that's being thrown out. I wonder if we've got someone else going off at turn 1. as we saw with Charles Leclerc and with Romain Grosjean. Decent lap so far for Max Verstappen, who's well clear of the yellow trouble right at the first corner. No one matching Max for pace at the moment. His teammate Alex Albon, 44.8, was a second slower through the first sector. Kimi Räikkönen was almost 2 seconds slower. Sebastian Vettel was 2.5 seconds slower. Danny Kvyat was the car that spun and then continued on his way. Charles Leclerc is putting a 46.7 for his first sector, so not matching Max Verstappen. Verstappen's going to shoot right up the timings here. I wonder if Carlos Sainz might be a little bit of threat then from Charles Leclerc.
So they've gone out with some warmish wet so they can get straight onto it. We're seeing quite a lot of green sectors, except for Max Verstappen. They're all magenta sectors. He's absolutely flying. 2 corners to go. This is going to make a big difference.
This is interesting. Carlos Sainz has improved, but Charles Leclerc has improved by half a second compared to Carlos Sainz through the first sector. Verstappen is going to go, I think, right to the top of the charts, and he does. So Verstappen
by 8 seconds.
Yeah, with the fastest times. Like a new entry in number 1. It's Max Verstappen. Alex Albon goes second fastest. Next man to cross the line will be Kimi Räikkönen. We're on board with Räikkönen. He goes third fastest. Things are going to start to change around. There's a double yellow being thrown in the middle part of the track at the moment as we look now to see Sebastian Vettel go fourth fastest. So those that are getting to the end of this lap, they are improving, and they're improving by quite a substantial amount. Charles Leclerc is in the bottom 5, needs to get out of it, goes 5th fastest, but those behind him, can they keep that Ferrari driver back in the bottom 5? Well, Giovinazzi's not going to, because he goes only 8th fastest. Esteban Ocon was the quickest driver overall. He stays 6th fastest with his best time of a 2:07.4. George Russell will start in the back of the grid. Would dearly love, though, to be in Q2, and that's not going to happen because he's only 16th fastest as Carlos Sainz goes 10th fastest behind Charles Leclerc. Daniel Ricciardo goes 6th fastest, and Pierre Gasly now goes 6th fastest. So Danny Kvyat, who's had a spin after leaving the pits. Kevin Magnussen at risk as well.
Hamilton's at risk. Hamilton's not having a great lap out there at the moment.
He's certainly not lining up his tyres the way he would want. Neither did Valtteri Bottas there. Only 9th fastest for Bottas. Norris goes 10th fastest overall, pushes Hamilton down into 14th overall. But I think he's going to be okay because both Perez and Kvyat have pitted. And I wonder, Kvyat had a spin at turn 1, turn 3. That
Hamilton stayed 14th.
Yeah. Well, Danny Kvyat had a spin. Sergio Perez might have encountered trouble as well. It was Nicholas Latifi who stopped.
Oh, Hamilton's time deleted, but he wasn't quicker anyway.
Wasn't quicker, exceeded track limits. That's why Nicholas Latifi has stopped. But it was only those in that bottom 5 not being able to go faster that enabled Lewis Hamilton to go through here.
Yeah, and of course some of them, including Hamilton, would have been caught up with the yellow flags in the early sectors of the lap, but
I mentioned we had a double wave yellow in the middle part of the track. This, I think, is wide. It's Nicholas Latifi. Whoa! Couldn't see much, and then he finds himself in the gravel and not able to go anywhere. This is what happened to Daniel Kvyat at turn 1.
I can't see a man.
Visibility a problem for Daniel Kvyat, and as a result of that, he's out of this first part of qualifying. Sergio Perez manages to scrape through in the Racing Point. Kevin Magnussen is the one that's the first of the relegated cars. That's why Lewis Hamilton had his time deleted for exceeding track limits, but that's for Mercedes, who've taken pole in every single race this season. Looking at the performance of Bottas and then Hamilton, that's bit of a worry there.
Yeah.
Tyres just not lighting up for them at all.
Lewis never quite made it on the way into turn 1, as we saw with others. That means you're in double trouble, but
how the hell can people improve when it's yellow flags all the way around?
I don't know, Kev. I don't know. We'll have to look at it.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, understood.
I think it depends where you were, and if you show, because the times are so disparate, if you show that you lifted a little bit for a yellow flag, how on earth do you do that today with your data when you barely got the throttle fully down anyway? And a good point there from Magnussen. But we do know the Red Bulls are out front and away from it, and look how much faster they are than anybody else.
The stewards will look at the mini sectors around the track as to where the yellow flag is, and if you lift in that mini sector to show that you've, obeyed the flag, fair enough. But there were double yellows being waved for Nicholas Latifi, and I wonder if that might just be a problem for some of those that did improve their time.
Well, two things to say there. Yes, double wave yellows, slow down and be prepared to stop.
Exactly.
But also, when you go to the steward's office, yeah, they're going to investigate it. All lap times set under yellow flags will be investigated after the session. Oh, we've got some stories to come today, yeah. When you go to the steward's office, when you haven't had to throttle down hardly, how do you decide whether somebody lifted or not extra?
The thing is that all lap times set under yellow flags to be investigated after the session. Well, why can't they do that now so that we can sort it all out before we go into Q2? As it is, we're going into Q2 without Latifi, Grosjean, Russell, Kvyat and Magnussen.
Well, maybe because there were so many of them, because there were, a litany, you have to say, of errors, but also of yellow flags there. What we will say is Martin was saying it wasn't dangerous, just very, very tricky out there. And I think highlighting for Max Verstappen his genius. 2 seconds ahead of his teammate, 3.7 over Raikkonen, up to 5 and 6 seconds to the rest. And double purples in his outlap even.
Well, again, this is a man that has so much self-belief. And when you're on a track like this, with all these tricky little puddles that are scattered around as he goes through that long turn 2, I'm not surprised. I really am not surprised how he's able to sort of get his foot on that throttle without making all these mistakes as he goes up now to turn 4. Very tricky through this right-hander. 5 and 6 coming up down the hill to 7 coming his way. It's just, you just hear that throttle. You can see the steering input that he's putting, but it's the belief that he has when he gets on that throttle and the control he has at the same time. 7 over that curb, doesn't interfere with the car too much, has to wait a little bit. Spinning there brilliantly all the way up that hill through turn 8. Feeding it in. Here we go. And even at that speed, beautiful car control as he goes down the hill to 9. This has been a tricky one all weekend. Using that curb. Nice shift. Again, just wonderful. He's right on the very edge of that traction. Yeah, braking it, of course, but at the end of the day, he's keeping the car in a beautiful straight line. And as he goes towards 12, under braking for the left-hander. Just waiting for it. Just that constant throttle you can hear there. So tricky there, that rear end really right on the edge for the last turn. Again, just beautiful because he's just right on the edge of traction the whole way around the lap, and what a lap.
It's wonderful to watch a genius at work. I know that mistakes amplified in these conditions, hence why we've got the big gap between the cars. Nevertheless, Max Verstappen out there on his own in that session. Let's get back up to Martin and David.
Talking of out on their own, we have a green light, and they're still retrieving the Williams of Nicholas Latifi.
Yeah,
that car's out on its own, but it shouldn't really be there if we've got a green light.
No, something's gone a little bit wrong there, but we're keen to get under double wave yellows with the truck on the track. That hasn't quite worked out.
Yeah, we could have waited a minute, I think, on that one, and coming off the back of Imola, where we saw those marshals still working at the side of the track, whilst Lance Stroll was unlapping himself during the race. Don't want to see that.
We don't like trucks on the track, especially on wet days.
Certainly don't. So that was the Williams of Nicholas Latifi. His teammate George Russell keeps up his record then of now 35-0 against his teammate on a Saturday. The man Ted calls Mr. Saturday has out-qualified his teammate again, but he'll start behind him.
Why did they start the session?
I have no idea.
Kimi is absolutely spot on with that. I don't know why they started the session either. Russell will start right at the back because, of course, of that engine penalty that he took from Friday. Ted, to you.
Yeah, grid penalty doesn't mean...
no, he still beats his teammate.
Sure, we can't call him Mr. Saturday today because he has a grid penalty, so it doesn't count, Crofty.
No, yeah, but that was from Friday.
Doesn't count. Right, I tell you who's
call
optimistic.
Him George.
Yes, of course, but he is good on a Saturday, though, isn't he, Martin, eh?
Very.
It's Saturday. I tell you who was optimistic, that's McLaren, the only team that I can see, correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't see what the Alfa Romeo Sauber was on the intermediate tyres. So good luck, Carlos, good luck, Lando. They're the only ones I've seen left leave the pit lane. I've been counting them out with the intermediates. Everyone else is on full wet.
Doing what they did at the start of Q1 as well. Let's ride on board with Lando Norris then on the intermediate tyres. This could be a voyage of discovery for the man who turned 21 yesterday and for the rest of the teams as well.
It's slowing down nicely. It's only if there's a lot of standing water, and the intermediate will still clear a decent amount of water, but he'll be taking a bite out of the seat every time he hits the throttle. It's sticking all right so far, but if it does let go, he'll be a total passenger. He's happy that the Inters will go through the little bit of standing water, the deeper standing water. Oh, was he? That's a T6. That's a corner where track limits matter.
Yep.
He was certainly beyond the white line, wasn't he? He was on the curb, but beyond the white line.
It's the white line that defines the edge of the track down there and at all corners for this weekend. Listen to that wheel spin.
It's actually exciting, isn't it? I'm like, oh, I thought it was going around then. It's challenging, but it is edgy stuff, isn't it?
I've got a knot in my stomach every time we go on board with a car at the moment. And you tense up, as I'm sure the drivers are in the cockpit too.
Must be 20% full throttle at the moment, a lap around here, no more.
This will be tricky down here as well. Has been all the way through this weekend. Kimi Raikkonen, by the way, has done the fastest of the first sectors so far. Sergio Perez.
Oh, that's brave.
Looking good as well.
Brave from young Lando there. Through turn 11, the kink. It's that sort of corner that in the dry you kind of ignore, in the wet becomes terrifying. These are a little bit more predictable. Just coax it around then, this last left-hander. Don't get greedy on the throttle through the exit. Get it straight, and then you'll get much better traction when you're not asking the rear tyre to turn the car as well. Over the line he goes. It's 2 minutes, still miles behind what Red Bull did in Q1.
So he couldn't break the 2-minute barrier. Max Verstappen, 2.5 quicker than Lando Norris through the first sector. Kimi Raikkonen with a decent time there. Lando Norris has had his lap time deleted for turn 6 when we saw him run wide, and that has now gone, that lap time, so he's going to have to try again. But you get the feeling that McLaren, not just thinking about these laps, but in a 2-3 laps time, that's when the intermediates might come into their own as more and more cars get rid of more and more water from the surface of this circuit.
Yeah, it's interesting that Lando was quicker on his inters than anybody's gone so far on the wet. So, proof of concept. Unfortunately, we were on board when it happened. A little bit too wide in turn 6.
Alex Albon goes fastest overall. Still, we haven't quite broken the 2-minute barrier in this session, so 10 minutes to go. Watching Daniel Ricciardo tiptoe his way out of the final corner with Max Verstappen, his former teammate, right behind him. Ricciardo goes second fastest, make that third fastest as Verstappen does now comfortably break the 2-minute barrier. I told you he was going well, 1:57.1, and Lance Stroll 0.3 back on the wet tyres in the racing points, but going second fastest. And we mentioned earlier, Stroll is a handy driver in these sort of conditions.
So is Perez, his teammate, by the looks of it.
Yeah, so Perez was looking good too. Valtteri Bottas only 4th fastest in the Mercedes. And now Lewis Hamilton going 5th fastest, all breaking the 2-minute barrier. But the Mercedes, whether this is intentional or not, certainly not finding the pace that the likes of Verstappen, Perez and Stroll have just shown there. They only need, of course, to get into the top 10 to go through into the final part of qualifying, but they've been struggling all weekend long.
Norris's first official lap then, providing he hasn't any misdemeanors. It's about the same time, it's only 8th this time.
And next across the line will be Kimi Raikkonen on the wet weather tyres. Raikkonen finding some temperature there, and 8/100ths of a second behind Max Verstappen. Decent lap, it seems, there from Kimi. What about his teammate, Antonio Giovinazzi? The difference between the two Alfa Romeo drivers, quite some margin of 57.2 for Raikkonen, a 2-minute 1.4 for Giovinazzi. As Ocon goes 6th fastest, Sebastian Vettel can't lift himself neither can Charles Leclerc yet out of the bottom 5.
Yeah, both Ferraris are not in at the moment, so I'd expect Alex Albon to be moving up as well pretty soon. Stroll is on an absolute stonking lap. Albon then goes fastest. It's Lance Stroll that's done 2 purple sectors so far.
Doesn't have a Q3 appearance, Lance Stroll, since Mugello withdrew, obviously, at the Nürburgring after feeling unwell and subsequently testing positive for COVID. But he hasn't got a points finish since his podium in Monza, and he hasn't been in Q3 since Mugello. But the Racing Point and Lance Stroll and Sergio Perez looking very good in these conditions. But the track, obviously, Martin, as well, getting faster and faster all the time. As Stroll goes quickest overall, and Perez then 3rd fastest.
But interestingly, Verstappen was not faster on that lap. Whether he just had a particular incident or what, I don't know, but Stroll fastest then, as you say.
Perez has had his lap time deleted that took him 3rd fastest, exceeding track limits at turn 1. Hamilton only 7th fastest. And this is becoming a bit of a theme as lap after lap, Bottas and Hamilton not where you would normally expect them in a Q2 session. Expect them to be set in the fastest times, but the Mercedes doesn't seem to be generating that tyre temperature that you need out there in these cold, damp, slippy, greasy conditions that will favour a car that works its tyres that little bit harder, because they don't get the friction off the track surface to generate heat. So you need the car to be working those tyres harder to try and help you out.
Perez on a very good first sector, Albon on a very good middle sector. So at the moment it looks like advantage to Red Bull and Racing Point, doesn't it?
It does. And what would you do if you were McLaren at this stage? Because both Norris and Sainz in the bottom 5 on those intermediate tyres. Do the Inters come good eventually, or do you switch to wets?
Well, unfortunately, Lando's next time, he had one deleted, it wasn't really any quicker. It's not like they're coming to him at the moment, but and Leclerc then still can't break into the top 10.
Is something of a surprise as well. We'll just watch Max Verstappen towards the end of this lap behind Daniel Ricciardo once again. Ricciardo's 8th fastest, but improving on this particular lap. As he crosses the line now to go 2nd fastest, and Verstappen 2.2 seconds clear. Out in front. He is finding pace. Ted, to you.
Hasn't worked for Lando Norris. He reports on the radio that his rears have just burned out, really. They've just worn out on those intermediates. So they've decided to pit both McLarens. Both Norris and Sainz have come in for a fresh set of wet tyres. That might work quite well for them, actually, because I think we might see some other people. What have we got? 5 or so minutes left. Might see some other people pit for new wets.
Yeah, bearing in mind they might have to take a lot of these tyres through the Grand Prix as well if it's wet. Hamilton then 4th this time around, but Verstappen over 2 seconds clear of much of the pack.
Yeah, Bottas and Hamilton slowly but surely making their way towards the top 4. But still, Max Verstappen 2.5 clear of Valtteri Bottas. As it stands at the moment, 0.08 of a second between Bottas and Hamilton, by the way. Not much at all, as Kimi Raikkonen goes 6th fastest. Definitely Kimi Raikkonen, man for the conditions out there. I know we've seen him sliding around a bit, but it's in this Q2 session, he's really producing some decent lap times for Alfa Romeo. Hasn't been into Q3 so far this season, nor is his teammate Antonio Giovinazzi, but they come here off the back of their first double points finish.
2 or 3 years of world rallying didn't do Kimi any harm in these conditions.
That's very true. Very true. This is the view that Pierre Gasly has got. There's not much of it, quite frankly.
I hope his is better than that camera view, actually. Albon then makes it a Red Bull 1-2.